Good afternoon. I'm just headed home from work, and before I move on to the tradition videos that I'm thinking I'm probably going to start tomorrow, I want to talk about magic again. Now, we've talked a bit about it, but I want to get a little bit more philosophical about it. And I'm going to do that with a couple different videos, each highlighting a different spell, rote, whatever you want to call it, and two very different ways of casting it. Now, what I want to illustrate here is that there is most definitely not just one way to cast an effect. I'm going to talk about some different groups that cast magic in different ways and use different spheres to do it. So, the first spell I'm going to look at is becoming a tiger. That's the effect you want. You want to become a tiger. In Dungeons & Dragons, this is known as shapeshift or wild shape. And the first version of the spell we're going to look at is basically what you may be familiar with from D&D. Now, to accomplish this, we're going to look at the Verbena. The Verbena are the witch-like mages. They use lots of blood and sacrifices and totems and maybe some voodoo thrown in there. So we're going to look at how a Verbena would become a tiger. Well, your Verbena is probably going to have some kind of a focus, be it a tiger mask or a tiger pelt or some kind of physical representation of a tiger. Makes sense. They're then going to, as part of their casting, they're going to incant and they're going to call out to a tiger spirit to join with them. Because otherwise, how the hell are they going to have the instincts of a tiger, right? You need a tiger spirit. That just goes without saying. You're a Verbena. And then what you're actually going to do, you're actually going to reshape yourself into a tiger. You're going to throw that pelt over your back and summon this spirit and shrink and crack and change and shapeshift, and boom, you're a tiger. Makes sense. What are you going to need for that? Well, you're probably going to need life 4, it's a major change, and spirit 2 to bring this to the spirit to you. So life 4, spirit 2, mask or pelt, whatever, call on the spirit, and boom, you're a tiger. Makes sense. That's how most people would think of doing that. Now let's go a different way. Let's forget about that whole Verbena thing, all the blood and all of the physical stuff. You're a virtual adept now, right? Reality is just code, right? And everything around you is able to be influenced. So what are we going to do? First thing we're going to do is we're going to teleport ourselves out of there. Because if there's going to be a tiger there, we don't want to be there. So we're going to be moving away. And then there's a satellite up there somewhere overhead, right? It might not be normally set up to do this, but, well, we can fix that. So we're going to have that satellite project a solid state hologram of a tiger where we just left from. Great. And then we are going to remote control that tiger from that safe spot that we've just teleported away to. So we are now nowhere to be found, and where we were, there is a tiger. As far as anyone knows, we're a tiger. Great. Sounds good. That's not going to be life and spirit, though, is it? No, you're going to need correspondence 2 to move yourself and to contact the satellite. you're going to need forces 3 to make that solid hologram. And you're going to need prime 2 because you're generating a solid thing out of nothing. And there you have a virtual adept becoming a tiger. It's completely different than what you would normally think of as becoming a tiger, because that's how the VAs think. That's how the adepts do things. They use technology just like the Union does. I mean, yeah, they are a tradition of mages, but they are still technomancers. They're just not technocrats. And yeah, either effect is still going to be vulgar. We know that, but you're becoming a tiger. Of course it's going to be vulgar. Now then, I'm just about to make a stop to pick up a few things for home. So I'm going to end the video there. And when I get back in the car, I'll go over the second spell that I mentioned. And we're going to talk a little bit about teleportation. I'll be back in a few minutes, or obviously, once these are both uploaded, just click on into the next video now. But don't forget to like and subscribe before you do, because I really want you to. Soon. And hello again. On my way home, finished with my errands, time to go over that teleportation spell I mentioned. Now, this is not necessarily about optimizing or getting whatever out of. This is just to demonstrate how many different ways there are you can go about doing a spell. Ways that, depending on how you think about it, might be completely different from each other. So, teleportation. Well, most people would say, oh, well, that's correspondence 4. You know, just straight correspondence 4, and you disappear here and you reappear there. But not everyone's going to use correspondence that way. Not everyone's going to think of teleportation that way. So I'm going to use a sci-fi example as a stand-in for the Technocratic Union. Let's just say that Starfleet is the Technocratic Union of the future, and their transporter pads are teleportation, because that is what they are. Okay, so what does a transporter do? It takes living matter, converts it into energy, it transports that energy from one point to another, and then it transfers that energy back into living matter. Okay. That sounds very different than just straight correspondence 4, I disappear, I reappear. So what do we need for that? Well, starting out, you're going to either need matter or life, or possibly matter and life, because people are wearing clothing and things like that. For yourself, it's going to be probably 2. For others, it'd be 4. So we'll say matter 4, life 4. Forces, because you're beaming energy, you're moving energy from place to place. Forces 3, and maybe 1 dot of correspondence to know where you're going to without messing up. So that's a lot more spheres. But it's a very different skill set. So if you are not heavy into correspondence, but you are heavy into some of the other areas, it gives you the option. It also means that if disappearing and reappearing does not fit your paradigm, there are other ways to look at doing things. Now, not all of them are going to cost a lot more spheres, but it's a very easily broken down example. So there we have it. 2 very different spells with 2 very different ways to cast them. Something to think about the next time you're trying a magical effect. Like, subscribe, and I'll be back in the morning, probably to talk about the conventions. Sorry, the traditions. I'm moving over into the other side. See you then.